All right. Should be starting up now, guys. You'll notice something a little different, I guess, and that you'll notice that now I am now in kind of the stream here. But yeah, hope you guys are having a good Thanksgiving. Here to talk about now a 2-game slate instead of a 3-game slate. So we got 30 minutes until lock. We have some big tournaments here on Draftkings, right? We have another Millie Maker. So I'll talk about strategy here, game theory. If you're talking cash games, GPPs, if you're going to try to win this solo, if you're going to try to win the Millie solo, obviously you're going to have to do something unique. There's going to be some low-owned plays. We'll talk about some potential cheap value that you can take shots on, or you can leave some money on the table to kind of differentiate yourself. But yeah, let's jump into it. So let's take a look at the Vegas odds, and then we can jump into the player-by-player breakdown. Then we'll get to questions at the end. So first game here is Houston and Detroit starting up in about 30 minutes. It's a highest over-under 52 with the Texans being 3-point favorites. This definitely looks like the better game to stack if you are going to stack of the two. Both defenses are not great. They kind of struggle. I know Detroit offensively was not great last week, but this is a much easier spot. So got to feel better about the first game if you are going to stack. And then the other game here, Washington and Dallas at 46 over under. Cowboys are 3-point favorites. And then again, Baltimore and Pittsburgh got postponed, so we only have 2 games to talk about here. What's going on, Cam? All right, so let's start with quarterback. And yeah, at the top, again, Deshaun Watson, he's going to be the most popular quarterback play of the slate. And, he's clearly the safest option. He's the guy that you play in cash games. I wouldn't try to get cute in cash. Now, can you make the argument to fade him in GPPs? Yes, you can. Just because, the ownership's going to be very, very high in it. Because if you look at the other quarterbacks in the slate, you have Stafford, you have Dalton, and Alex Smith. So, yeah, Watson's going to be the clear guy to spend up for, and the fact that there's just not a lot, it is actually a little bit tricky to use your whole salary, so people are just going to play Deshaun. He's clearly the top play, clearly the optimal play. And again, for cash games, I think you do plan because he's a guy that just has the most upside by far. Out of anyone on the slate, the rushing yards, right? He's been running the ball a bit more here, 38, 50, 36, and 36 yards on the ground the last 4 games. And we know Detroit really struggles defensively. If you watch that last game against Carolina, they should have given up more points. It was 20-0, but PJ Walker actually did throw a couple picks in the red zone. So could have been a lot worse. Watson's the clear guy at quarterback. The other quarterbacks on the slate, Stafford, Dalton, and Smith, who would be the guy I would look to if I'm not playing Deshaun Watson? I think it would be Stafford, just because I think he's got the most upside of these three, out of the other 3 quarterbacks. And I like the matchup the best for him. I know he's been up and down. I know he's missing a couple big targets here, obviously with Galladay. Not going to have Amendola as well, but this is the type of spot I could see upside here from Stafford, and the fact that they don't have DeAndre Swift. I think they are going to have to rely on Stafford's arm a bit more. Sure, they're going to have AP and carry on, but they're not the same backs as DeAndre Swift. So Stafford's a guy that if I'm not playing Watson, I think it would be Stafford here. I think he does have some upside. He's been a little bit up and down, but yeah, he would be the guy I would look to. As far as Dalton and Alex Smith, they're just contrarian plays. You can look to these guys, but I don't know if they have the upside to really win you a GPP. And again, I think the Lions and Texans game has a better chance to shoot out than this Washington Dallas game. And on Washington and Dallas too, you have good running backs, right? You have Zeke obviously on the Dallas side, you have Gibson on Washington side. They can rely on the ground game a little bit more. Whereas with Houston, right, Duke Johnson, we've seen with David Johnson out, he struggled. With the Lions, no Swift. So I think, you can just feel more comfortable with the quarterbacks in the first game. If I had to pick a quarterback here with Dalton and Alex Smith, who would I pick? I guess it would be Dalton, but again, that's not a super strong take. So quarterbacks for me, it's Watson, getting the clear play at the top, and the guy you go to in cash, then Stafford, then Dalton, then Alex Smith for me. Running backs, so again, no DeAndre Swift is the big news. Ezekiel Elliott at 6'8", he's the guy I think you can feel the most comfortable with just because of the workload. Now, they are getting Tony Pollard a little bit more involved. with the recent weeks, but he's still a guy that you can expect, about 20 touches from. He's still a guy that will be involved in the pass game a bit as well. And if they're playing from ahead, you can expect, probably over 20 carries from Zeke Elliott. So sure, the matchup is probably the worst for the Cowboys in the slate against Washington, but Zeke's the guy that I think, again, for cash games, you probably go to him just because he's not really competing with anyone. Like, sure, again, Pollard will get some touches here and there, but with the other running backs in the slate, you have everyone that's kind of competing for touches. So Zeke Elliott's the guy I think you can feel the most comfortable with. Again, no DeAndre Swift, so that opens up stuff for Kerryon Johnson as well as AP. We'll talk about that in a bit. Antonio Gibson's at 6K, so he is a guy that has a lot of upside. And the downside here is they're still going to get J.D. McKissic involved, right? It's going to be about a 50-50 split. If you think Washington's playing from ahead, I think Gibson looks a little bit better. He's still a guy that will be involved in the pass game a bit. If you think Washington falls behind, McKissic's probably the guy you look to. So, Gibson's clearly the better back of the two, but they're still giving McKissic a lot of work. He's at 5-1. In the games they fell behind against the Giants and Detroit, 15 and 14 targets. In the game against Cincinnati, where they're playing from ahead, only 4 targets. So it's clearly how the game will flow with which running back you want to go with. So if you think Washington is playing from a lead, it's definitely Gibson's your guy. If you think they fall behind, McKissic's the one you want to look to. So Duke Johnson's at 5-7. He has really struggled with David Johnson out. Like 10 carries for 15 yards, 3 catches, and 5 targets last game. But this is a much better spot. We know Detroit is one of the worst teams defensively, especially against the run and the pass. So Duke Johnson is the guy that will still be out the majority of the game. So kind of like him as a contrarian play today. I don't think a ton of people get to him just because he's burned people in back-to-back weeks. Right? I played him against Cleveland. I know some people still played him against New England. So they're not going to want to go back to Duke Johnson, but he still will be like kind of their bell cow back. So I kind of like Duke Johnson as a contrarian play there at that price. And then we get to the Detroit running back. So with no Swift, it's going to be AP, it's going to be Kerryon Johnson. So in the game that last game when Swift missed, it was Kerryon that played a majority of the game. He played 70% of the snaps, AP played 30%. But that was because they were playing from behind. I think of it, this is going to be like a neutral game script, or even they're playing from ahead. It'll probably be a 50-50 split, or maybe AP a little bit more. We'll play a little bit more. So kind of the same situation with Washington, right, in the running backs. If you think Detroit's playing from behind, definitely Kerryon's your guy. He's clearly the pass-catching running back. If you think Detroit's playing from ahead, I think you can give a look to AP. Now, I think Kerryon will probably be a little bit more popular, but yeah, that's my take. Like, if I had to pick, I think it would just be Kerryon Johnson because I think the floor is just a little bit higher due to his pass-catching ability. I don't think they're going to throw the ball a ton to AP. Now, he has had a couple games with some catches here, but Kerryon's clearly the better pass-catching back. So another situation like Washington, all about how you think the game flows. Again, Detroit playing from ahead, you can give a look to AP. If you think they're playing from behind, Kerryon Johnson is probably the guy for you. And that's really it for running back. Like CJ Prosise will probably get a couple touches here for Houston. He's the backup running back, but I don't think we have to do that. I don't think we have to go there. I think that's getting too contrarian. And then Tony Pollard, he'll play a bit, right? He's 9-7, 9 and 5 carries last few games. If you want to take a dart throw, I don't hate it, but that's really it for running back. So wide receiver, let's talk about it. Terry McLaurin's at the top at 7K. He was questionable. He's expected to go. He's the guy you can feel the most comfortable with for Washington as far as the receivers. We'll talk about a couple value plays. They do have Dontrell Inman back, which does make both Sims a bit risky. If we look, well, I guess we'll go to the snap counts here in a sec, but yeah, McLaurin's the clear guy that has the most upside. He's been putting up basically double-digit fantasy points every single week with bad quarterback play, and the matchup's really good here against Dallas. So I have no issue with McLaurin. He's clearly the guy you can feel the most comfortable with as far as the Washington receivers. Obviously has the most upside as well. So yeah, I do like Terry McLaurin. As far as the Houston receivers with Fuller and Cooks, I like them both a lot. Again, I do lean the first game as far as stacking purposes if you want a game stack on this 2-game slate. Fuller, last couple games has been subpar for him, but he has had 8 targets in back-to-back games. If you go back a bit, right, he's the guy that can look to in the red zone. He had like 5 or 6 straight games with a touchdown, and I just like the matchup a lot here for Will Fuller. So love Fuller here. I love Cooks as well. I think Cooks will probably be a little bit more popular for the discount. I definitely think you can play both if you want to run a Houston stack. Both these guys are going to be out the majority of the game. We do have news of no Randall Cobb out of the slot and no Kenny Still. So Doesn't really affect Cooks or Fuller too much. We'll talk about Kiki Cutie, actually a viable punt play on the slate. He'll be playing out of the slot. I think he's actually does look like a pretty solid value option. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts with the Houston receivers. I like them both a good amount. We still have no Kenny Galladay as well, so we'll talk about Marvin Jones Jr. here in a sec. Amari Cooper's at 5'7". Like the upside for him. The Dallas receivers I don't think are going to be super popular here. Cooper hasn't really had a huge game here with Dalton playing a quarterback. 7, 5, 6, and 7 targets, but he's the one that possesses the most upside of these Dallas receivers, and he's at a very fair price there at 5'7". Marvin Jones Jr. is at 5'5". I like him a decent amount here. Like, no Galladay, no Amendola. He is clearly going to be the number one guy, and he's a guy that, he still possesses upside. Like, a couple games ago, he had, 8 catches and 10 targets for almost 100 yards and a touchdown. It seems like every year there's always one game where Marvin Jones Jr. will break the slate. And if you look at his games this year, he hasn't really had one. He's 23, not necessarily breaking the slate. Maybe this is the week where he just goes off and goes for 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards. And like I said, this is just a game where I feel like has potential to really shoot out. So I do like Marvin Jones Jr. a good amount. CeeDee Lamb at 5'4", playing out of the slot. All these Dallas receivers are perfectly fine options. Gallup's pretty cheap. We'll talk about him in a sec. This is a situation where, if Dallas is playing from ahead, we know, they will rely on the ground game a little bit more, but CeeDee Lamb still possesses upside. I mean, he had that amazing catch there against Minnesota, 5, 7, and 6 targets. I guess the issue with these Dallas receivers is they're just, they kind of hurt each other's upside, right? With Cooper, with Lamb, with Gallup, they have Schultz, they have Cedric Wilson they'll use a bit, so I'm fine if you land on one of these Dallas receivers, but I'm not really going to prioritize them. Like, for me, I think the safe way to go about the slate is you go Watson, you probably go one of those Houston receivers, and you probably run it back with either like Marvin Jones Jr. or Hockenson. I think that's like the safe way to go about it. Other receivers, so now we kind of get to the value receivers here. So let's look at Detroit. Let's look at what they did last game when Galladay was out. It was Marvin Hall that played the most, 68% of the snaps. It was actually Agnew over Cephas, played 50%, and then Cephas 30%, Mohamed Sanu 27%. So, sure, all 5 of these guys are viable. Obviously, Marvin Jones Jr. is the guy you can feel the most comfortable with. Let's go to Detroit real quick. So, Marvin Hall's at 3.9. Again, he played the second most behind Marvin Jones Jr. He's had some upside games, right? He had the game where over 100 yards when Galladay went down. He had a game where he had like 61 yards and a touchdown. I think he's a perfectly fine value option. I don't think he's going to be super popular on the slate just because you don't really need value. Like, you don't need a ton of value on the slate. But Marvin Hall would probably be the guy I would look to if I'm going to take a shot on one of these cheap Detroit wide receivers. Like, sure, you can give Agnew a look. He played the third most. He played 50% of the snaps, 3 catches and 6 targets. He's a speedster, a punt returner. I'm fine if you want to take a dart throw on him. Cephas at 3.1. I think that's getting a little bit too risky just off the last game where he only played 30% of the snaps. Mohamed Sanu at 27%. I don't think we have to go there. So, yeah, for me, obviously, it's Marvin Jones Jr. at the top, then Hall, then Agnew. Other wide receivers. So, we talked about Marvin Hall. Michael Gallup's at 3.5. I think he's a perfectly fine option here. He's still going to play a majority of the game. He had 5 targets. Did not have a great game last game, but still, he still possesses the upside. He still has big playability, and he's the cheapest of the bunch. So, Gallup for value, I think he still has upside. It's just, with these Dallas receivers, it's a little bit tricky to kind of nail down which one's going to beat, right? With Gallup, with Cooper, with CeeDee Lamb. Cooper is clearly the guy that has the most upside, but Gallup is the cheapest. So, again, with these Dallas receivers, I don't think I'm going to prioritize any of them, but I'm perfectly fine if you land on these guys. No Randall Cobb makes Kiki Cutie at 3.4 a viable punt. He'll play out of the slot. I think he's a decent option. I think he just goes overlooked because people will box score watch. They'll see, obviously he hasn't played a ton this season, but yeah, he's still a talented receiver, and playing out of the slot does kind of raise his floor a bit at 3.4. I expect probably 50 to 60% of the snaps for him, maybe even a little bit more, right? So Kiki Cutie is someone we can definitely look to for value. I think he does go a little bit overlooked. And then finally, we'll talk about the Washington cheap receivers. So Washington last game with Inman out, obviously McLaurin, we know he's going to play the majority of the game. It was Cam Sims that played the second most at 84%, then Steven Sims at 32%, then Wright at 26%. But Inman was the guy that was the number 2 receiver when he was healthy, and he is healthy. So what is the distribution, the snap distribution going to be for these Washington receivers? Well, McLaurin wouldn't be worried about it, right? He's going to play a majority of the game. I think the guys you can look to are Cam Sims and Inman. Now, Inman, again, we haven't seen him since week 6, so what is his workload going to be? They could definitely limit him, but he was the number 2 when he was healthy early on in the year. And then Cam Sims was the guy that played the second most last game. Sure, he hasn't been targeted a ton, 5, 4, and 2 targets, but if you just look at snap counts, right, he played 84% of snaps. So those would be the 2 guys I would look to, Sims, Inman. I don't think I would take a shot on Steven Sims or Wright. I think that's just getting a little bit too contrarian on this slate. But again, if you're making a ton of lineups, 150 lineups, you can definitely go there. Before we get into tight end, I do want to thank PrizePicks, guys, for sponsoring this show. If you guys are not familiar with PrizePicks, it's a website where you can bet over-unders on player props. So, player projections, right? You can bet, you can win up to 10x your money. I do have a link in the description below. If you sign up with the code DKDFS, you can get 100% match up to $100. So you put $100 in, you can get $200. And yeah, it's, you're not playing against anyone. So a couple of player props I want to mention here, and then we can get back into Draftkings that I like today. I like Stafford here at 19. I like the over there just because the game script here and the fact that with no DeAndre Swift, I think they will have to rely on Stafford's arm a bit more. And I like the matchup a lot here. So 19, I like the over there on Stafford. With the Detroit running backs, you see both are projected for 8. I would rather take the shot and carry on betting the over just because, again, the pass catching ability, I think, raises his floor a bit. So like the over on carry on. I like the over on Stafford. If you go down a bit here, you have some value plays or some guys that are not projected for a ton. Kiki Cutie's projected at 7.6. I think I like the over there as well, just because he's going to play the Randall Cobb role. We don't have Stills to compete with him, so Kiki Cutie will be the number 3 guy, and I expect 650, anywhere from 50 to 70% of the snaps. And at 7.6 or 7.6 projection, right, all you really need is a few catches there. So I kind of like the over there on Kiki Cutie as well. But yeah, if you guys are interested, you can hit or look in the description below. Use the code DKDFS for 100% match up to $100. But all right, let's get back into DraftKings now, and let's move on to tight end. So tight end, Hawkinson's the most expensive here at 4.7K. I like him the best. I think he will be the most popular, but with no Galladay, he is going to be a guy that's going to be used a lot, I feel like, in this offense. He's been targeted a good amount here, 10, 8, and 7 targets in 3 of the last 4 games. And, it's going to be him and Marvin Jones Jr., the clear guys for Detroit. So I like Hawkinson a lot here at 4.7. He's my favorite tight end play. There's a couple other options here, obviously, with Dalton Schultz at 3.8, Logan Thomas at 3.5. I think these guys are perfectly fine options. I think they do go overlooked, or Hawkinson will be the guy that's the most popular. I think for a cash game setting, you probably do look to Hawkinson. With Schultz, though, and Logan Thomas, both these guys possess upside, and both are going to be out there majority of the game. Like, Dalton Schultz has been targeted a good amount, 8, 7, and 6 targets. Logan Thomas, we know he's going to play majority of the game. Targets haven't been amazing for him, but the matchup's a little bit better on this side of the ball. So I think both are fine options. But yeah, for me, it's really Hawkinson, I think, is the clear guy at tight end. As far as the Houston tight ends go, this is more just dart throw territory because we have Akins, we have Fells, and we have Farrell Brown. All 3 will play, and all 3, they just hurt each other's upside. So I don't really feel comfortable with these guys. If you want to take a dart throw on one of them with Brown, Fells, and Akins, fine. But just know all 3 will play. So trying to nail down which one's going to be is tough. I don't think we have to do it if you're making one lineup. Of course, if you're making multiple lineups, you can go there. Finally, defense. So defense for me, I think the defense you can feel the most comfortable with is probably either Washington or Dallas. With the Lions defense at 2-2, they're more of a contrarian play. You can go there, but again, you don't really need the value on the slate, right? It's kind of hard to use all your salary. The Texans defense at 2-7, yeah, I probably don't go there. So with this first game, I'm probably not going to go there with the defense. I prefer the Cowboys or Washington defense. And for the price, I think the best point per dollar is probably the Cowboys going up against Alex Smith. So that's where I would look. I would probably look to the defense in the second game with either Washington or the Cowboys. But we know defense is a super high variance position, and that definitely you could see the Texans or the Lions in the winning lineup. But what you need there's probably like a defensive score. So I feel a little bit better with the Cowboys and the Washington defense. But that's really it. That's really it for my breakdown, guys. So let's get in some questions. We have about 10 minutes until lock. Real quick, I'll ask if you enjoy the content to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, 10 minutes until the giveaway on Twitter. If you guys did not follow me, you can enter into a $25 giveaway. All you have to do is retweet the tweet that I tweeted out this morning. And again, we'll be doing that right at lock. So make sure to enter that if you guys want a chance to win $25. But let's get into some questions here. I went nearly all in into Deshaun Watson. I mean, yeah, he's clearly the guy that I feel like you can feel the most comfortable with. I think he has the most upside. He's been running the ball a lot more recently. So, yeah, really do like Deshaun. And ownership we know is going to be up. Like, I think you can make the fade, or you can make the argument to fade him there. Hey, guys, let's get some upvotes for the man DK is a GOAT. I appreciate that, man. I went nearly, okay, appreciate you, DK. Let's see, Gibson, Cutie, Hawkinson, Washington, D, or Fuller, Marvin Jones Jr., Akins, and Dallas, D. That's a tough one. I think I would still go with the first option with Gibson, Cutie, Hawkinson, and Washington D. Like I obviously like Fuller and Marvin Jones Jr. I think have like enormous upside, but I just don't feel comfortable with the Houston tight ends. So I would probably go with the first option there. Is Duke Johnson the best way to get contrarian? That's definitely a way. Like Duke Johnson's going to go overlooked. It's not like he's going to be unowned, but I kind of like him because he's been a letdown the last couple of games. And we know he's going to play majority of the game. We know he's still going to be involved as a pass catching back as well. McKissick or Duke Johnson? I would rather play Duke Johnson, but it's close. And the reason being is Duke Johnson doesn't have a lot of competition, right? He is still going to play majority of the game, whereas McKissick and Gibson are kind of going to split the touches. So I would lean Duke Johnson. What do you think about playing McKissick and Gibson together? You can definitely do it. It's a 2-game slate. 100% both can get there. Running back's a little bit weak today, so yes, I'm perfectly fine with that. I think, obviously there's a little bit of negative correlation, but both running backs are going to be involved a good amount. We know Gibson, the early down guy, McKissick more the third down back, so you can definitely play them both together. Hawkinson and Dallas D or Schultz and Washington D. I would rather play Hawkinson and Dallas D. I just like the upside the most on T.J. Hawkinson today for tight end. Fuller captain with Watson, for Showdown. Fuller captain with Watson, Stafford, Hall, Cutie, and Agnew for Showdown. I like it. I think Fuller and Cooks, that's a tough one. Both are pretty even. I think Cooks will probably be a little bit more popular just because he is a little bit cheaper. Happy Thanksgiving, DK. Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Hope you guys have a great day. Thoughts on Cooks? Cooks, for his price, I think I slightly prefer him to Fuller. Now, personally, I'm going with the Houston stack. I know it's a chalky approach, but yeah, I'm actually playing Watson, Fuller, and Cooks. Peterson and Logan Thomas are Carrion and Schultz. I would rather go Carrion and Schultz. With Schultz versus Logan Thomas, that's basically a coin flip. And I just feel a little bit more comfortable with Carrion because of his pass catching ability. Do you think it's fine to use 3 running backs? Yeah, I think you can do it. Logan Thomas and Fuller or Cooks and Hawkinson. I would rather go Cooks and Hawkinson there. With Cooks and Fuller, that's basically a coin flip. And again, I like the upside a little bit more with Hawkinson to Thomas. McLaurin is playing right. Yeah, they had his status up in the air, but he should be good to go. Now, if for some reason there's a surprise scratch and McLaurin is not available, then obviously you look to Inman more. You can look to Sims more. So I like Stafford. Yes, Stafford would be the guy that if I'm not playing Watson, I would look to Stafford. And Watson's going to be super, super popular. So you can definitely look to Stafford to get different. DK, need W's from you, Lions, and my football team today. Hopefully, man. Hopefully Lions pull out the W. I got the Lions shirt on. I don't know if you guys can see that. But yeah, hopefully we get some W's, man. I'll be rooting for Washington for you. About Alex, let's see. I like that a lot. People forget how he is. Let's see. McLaurin. Is McLaurin too expensive? He's not too expensive. It's actually a little bit difficult to use all your salary, I think. And for that reason alone, I think McLaurin will be pretty popular. Don't think he's a must play, but I don't think he's too expensive either. Best food on the table today, tough one. I'm not a huge Thanksgiving food guy, so I don't have a super strong take on the best food, to be honest. Let's see. I'm Lions heavy for the showdown. I like that. I've never been more sure that Duke Johnson's not the play. I'm playing zero Duke Johnson. He will without doubt be the highest score player on the slate. Duke Johnson, like I said, he has let people down in back-to-back weeks. So I don't think he's going to be super popular. I think the chalk running backs will probably be Zeke, Gibson, and then probably one of the Detroit guys. Favorite Dallas wide receiver? Well, for upside, it's Cooper. I like Cooper the most. But if you need a value guy, I kind of like Gallup. Again, I don't have a super strong take on those Dallas receivers. Go with what fits with your lineup. You don't have to avoid all three, but I don't think I would prioritize anyone. Like the guys that I would prioritize for like a cash game would probably be, again, the Houston passing attack with Watson and either Fuller or Cooks. Probably one of the Detroit guys, either Hawkinson or Marvin Jones Jr., and then probably Zeke just because of the workload. QD a captain of Marvin Jones Jr., or Fuller a captain with Marvin Hall. I would rather go with the upside play, so Fuller a captain with Marvin Hall. Anybody pick Alex Smith? He's going to be low owned. He is. Not saying he can't be in the winning lineup, but I just feel more comfortable with the quarterbacks in the first game. Stafford and Zeke or Watson and Peterson. I would rather go Stafford and Zeke there. Peterson's competing with touches. Doesn't really have a ton of PPR upside with him getting up there in age. So I'd rather go with Stafford and Zeke. DK, what's your favorite tight end other than Hawkinson? Other than Hawkinson, I'll go Logan Thomas just because I think he'll be lower owned than Schultz. With him and Schultz, they're very similar plays. I like the matchup a little bit better for Logan Thomas, so I'll go Logan Thomas. You're pretty high on Hawk. Are you higher on Hawk over Marvin Jones Jr.? I'm high on Hawkinson just because tight end is a little bit weaker, I guess. So would I play a Hawkinson over Marvin Jones Jr.? I mean, I'm playing both, so that's a little bit hard to answer. I think Hawkinson's the guy you look to for tight end, clearly, if you're going for safety and for even upside, too. So, yeah, I guess I would go Hawkinson over Marvin Jones Jr. Which receiving core to fade today? If I was going to fade a receiving core, it would probably be Washington. McLaurin, Akins, Texans, or Amari, Logan Thompson, the Cowboys. I would rather go Amari, Logan Thompson, the Cowboys. And the reason being, again, since those Houston tight ends, they're utilized 3. So all 3 will play. It's just, I would rather go with the guy, Logan Thomas, who's going to play majority of the game. So I'll go with the second option. Zeke and Dalvin, or Miles Sanders and Dalvin. Oh, so is that for like season long? Zeke and Dalvin Cook, or Miles? I would rather go with Zeke and Dalvin. How does this look, DK? Watson, Gibson, Kerryon Johnson, Terry McLaurin, Fuller, Jones Jr., Hawkinson, Hall, and Dallas. I like that. What, you're not a Thanksgiving food guy? That's all bad, DK. I mean, I'm not like I'm anti-Thanksgiving, but I'm not like, it's not amazing, I guess. Didn't Cooper have like 3 touchdowns last Thanksgiving? Yeah, he has had some big games, I feel like, on the Thanksgiving slate. So he's the guy that has the most upside for me for those Dallas receivers. Swap Hall and Terry, so you have a late guy in the flex. Always for roster construction, make sure you do have a late guy in the flex position so you have a little bit more room. Marvin Hall or Kerryon Johnson? Yeah, that's a tricky one. That's almost a coin flip for me because Marvin Hall should be the number 2. I expect about 70% of the snaps. Kerryon, he'll split work with AP, but he's the pass-catching guy. I think if you're going for safety, it's Kerryon, just because running backs are always a little bit safer. Maybe if you're going for the upside, Marvin Hall. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Very, very close for me. Watson, Gibson, Johnson, Cooks. Marvin Jones Jr., McLaurin, Hawkinson, Cooper, Texans D. I like it. I have no issue with that at all. Peterson or McKissick? I would go McKissick there just because the PPR, right? Draftkings full point PPR. I feel more comfortable with McKissick. Gibson or J.D. McKissick. Yes, that's a situation where I don't have a strong take. It's about what you think happens in the game, right? If you think Washington's going to be playing from the head, Gibson's the guy. If you think they fall behind, McKissick's the guy. Doesn't matter what Cooper did last year, different opponent. Yeah, true. But again, Cooper of the 3 receivers has the most upside for Dallas. Marvin Hall season. I think Marvin Hall is definitely a value guy that looks decent here. How are you fitting Terry? How how are you feeling Terry, Cooks, Fuller, Marvin Jones, and Hockenson in your lineup? Well, I have 4 of those 4 guys. I don't have McLaurin, so I have Cooks, Fuller, Marvin Jones, and Hockenson. I think Peterson gets touches. Will it be a passing game? Yeah, I expect Peterson to be the early down back. So if this game is close or even Detroit's playing from ahead, like I would not be surprised if AP gets 10 to 15 touches on the ground. Taking a shot on Gallup, I'm fine with it. I am. He'll still play the majority of the game. Best play for the showdown slate in the late game. I guess I didn't really look at the prices, so hard for me to say, but if you look for value, it would probably be, if you're looking for a value play in that game, I think it would be Gallup or one of the tight ends. Okay, all right, Peterson, let's see. Would you take Hockenson over Cooper? Straight up, no. I would rather play Cooper over Hockenson. But just because tight end is weak today, that's why I like Hockenson the most. Watson, Elliott, Gibson, Cooks, Marvin, McLaurin, Hockenson, Gallup, Washington. I think that's perfectly fine. I faded McLaurin. I really like Logan Thompson's. Alex Smith loves his tight ends. I'm good with it. I don't think McLaurin's a must play. 4 Lions players in my lineup, and I feel confident. Yeah, I kind of have a stack of the first game too, so we can go over some ownership, guys. We're at lock, and then I'll do the giveaway as well, or once ownership loads in. I guess I'll do the giveaway now. So, got the retweet random pick. Put the tweet in there. So let's see, submit, and the winner is the great 9696. So I will hit him up on Twitter. Thanks again, guys, for entering. I'll do more giveaways again in the future. But yeah, let's go over some ownership here once it comes in. It does take a sec here. For how do you feel in best ball, DK? I lucked out with Herbert, and I'm sitting in first. So best ball, yeah, I'm sweating it out right now because I'm in second place in my best ball league by like 10 points. So I have a chance. I have Watson and Cooks going. So I'm really hoping for a big game from Deshaun Watson here. Yeah, I have kind of the reason why my best ball's been, I only did one, but kind of who's carried it, Kamara. But with Taysom Hill playing quarterback, it does kind of hurt his upside. So we will see how that goes. So I do kind of need a big game from Watson for my best ball and for my DraftKings lineups. But yeah, let's go over some ownership, guys, in the Millie Maker, and then we will get out of here. So congrats, DK, by the way. Looks like you got a promo. Did, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Stafford, Watson, Jones, Jr., Hall, Cutie. Let's see. Is my DraftKings not going to load? Here we go. Come on. All right, so Watson in the Millie Maker, 64% owned. No real surprise there. What's up, DK? What's up, Nathan? How's it going, man? Kerryon Johnson at 16%, so I guess that's kind of where I got different. Will Fuller, 76%. Brandon Cooks, 53%. I'm actually a little bit surprised about that, but it makes sense because there's just not, like, it actually is a little bit difficult to use all your salaries, so I guess people just jammed Fuller in. Again, I used both. I used Marvin Jones Jr. as well. He's 51%, and then Hockenson at 50% as well. So you can kind of see I went with a majority of the players here in the first game. I love 10% Marvin Hall. Yeah, that's pretty good ownership for Marvin Hall. Like, he is a guy that will play the second most. CMC injury destroyed my best ball. Yeah, that's tough. Injuries are really tough for best ball. Let's see. Look at some other ownership. Pharaoh Brown was one of those tight ends for Houston. He's at 0.6% owned. Cooks, let's see. I'm seeing a lot of the same. I'm going to try to see if we get Duke Johnson, so 37% owned. That's a little higher than I thought, but I get it, right? He's a guy that still possesses upside, even though he's been bad in back-to-back games. 0.3% Pharaoh Brown for me. Yeah, I mean, that's a way to win the Millie Maker, right? Is you got to take some shots on some cheap guys like Marvin Hall, like a Kiki Cutie, 7%, like a Pharaoh Brown. Like, sure, it's risky, but that's a way you win the Millie. Like, for me, I left a good amount of money on the table. I left about $1,000 on the table. My lowest owned guy is Kerryon, so I kind of played a chalkier lineup. But the way I differentiated myself was I just left money on the table. At DraftKings, 333 contests had guaranteed big money. Only 72 out of the 3,000 entered. I caught it late, and I would have got in there. Wait, really? There was that much overlay? Thanks, DK, of course, guys. Someone has David Blau at the quarterback. Well, that is, they'll pay the rake with David Blau. All right, guys, I'm going to go watch. I felt so good with my lineup until Swift got ruled out. Same. I had Swift in there as well. I felt really good as well. I had to change some things around, but we'll see. Hopefully, carry on pays off for me. I'm going to head out of here, guys. I'm going to go watch this game. So I hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, I'll be back for a final look video for week 12. That'll be up tomorrow. Be on the lookout for that. So yeah, thanks again. I really do appreciate you guys coming to check out the live stream on Thanksgiving.